Hello, everyone. My name is Carolina, and I'm here representing Arkbound Foundation, a charity working to widen access to literature and improve diversity within publishing. Today, we have with us two authors, Rita Afonso and Luiza Sarayed-Din, both from Brazil, who have written a chapter together for an upcoming Arkbound book named Climate Adaptation, coming out on this 25th of October. Rita Afonso is a Brazilian professor and researcher at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro on topics related to marketing and design for social innovation and sustainability. She is also an Honorary Research Associate at the Sheffield Institute for International Development. As a researcher, she works within the projects related to sustainable consumption, agri-food ethics in the Global South, all while participating and coordinating projects around social innovation, sustainable entrepreneurship, and social transformation. Luiza Sarayed-Din is also a researcher at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, focusing on topics related to the Global South. She has 8 years of experience living in the Middle East and Asia, engaging in projects and research related to social innovation, public policy, and urban planning. She also participated in policy development in Oman and developed research in historical areas of Malaysia affected by urban development plans. She has also accompanied multiple studies related to urban challenges in the Global South. Both Rita and Luiza are developing work at the Laboratory of Technology, Dialogues and Sites, which has been studying peripheral innovations for more than 15 years, and which is where they have been developing their work connected to Brazilian favelas. Welcome, Rita and Luiza. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the first question that I would like to ask you is about your personal journeys that led to your current work with social change in these peripheral areas such as favelas, and ultimately to writing a chapter for this book.
Okay. Who starts?
Please, Rita.
Okay, thank you. So, I born poor in Rio de Janeiro. So my journey is my research. In Brazil and in many other countries in the world, if you born poor, you must give a lot of effort to move in the social economic pyramid. So I have the lucky to study here in Federal University, the one I work today, with bursary. So it was easy to understand what I'm working with, and because I lived it. And then my interest is focused on it because I am in the biggest university of the country, the better one also. And I have the lucky also to work in the LTDS lab that have a focus on this discussion. So
Okay. How about you, Luiza? Do you also have a similar journey?
Yes, actually, in terms of my background, I also had a more simple place where I was born, and I studied my whole life in public school, which in Brazil it says a lot about your background and the way that you were raised. And I had the opportunity to go to a federal university as well to study. And throughout this journey, also I had my mother has always worked as a teacher in schools with vulnerable students. So I've been always in touch with this type of challenge. And during my master's, I had the opportunity to study for 2 years to do ethnographical study in favela in Rocinha, which is one of the biggest slums in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. And there I was studying the urban planning and the public policies over there. It was the first urban development, official urban development invested by the government in a favela, an urbanization project, which was this one in Rocinha. And later on, I was traveling around the world and living for more than 8 years in different cultures, really dramatically different. So in the Middle East and Asia, and coming from Brazil, it stretched my way of looking at the difference and to looking at the global South. So I was always looking, searching in my academic journey to find theories to explain, or at least to help me to understand the challenge that we face in the global South. So I believe this background helped me a lot in terms of which type of subject I was searching for, and also the theories that I found to help me to explain and to build my lens to look towards this challenge.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Oh, sorry, Rita, please go on.
No, a little compliment because I had the opportunity. I get into the university with a professor position only 6 years ago. I studied there. I worked there as a researcher in the lab, but I work for many years as a marketing consultant. And I was in Rio when the Expo 92 happened, the big conference about environment and people. And it was the first time I have contact with this lot of issues and themes about social development and environmental development, and it was very important for me. So after this, I work in many different favelas in Rocinha with a woman cooperative, in Favela da Maré, that is our most big complex of favelas, coordinating a school, a social Escola Popular de Comunicação Crítica, popular school of critic communication that try to train young leaders from favela to work with communication in the city. And some other work. So I think this proximity with the life of these people also put on me a lot of questions. So it was easy to research on it.
Okay, so getting a little bit into the context of your chapter, one of the things that are very crucial there is you mentioned the social innovation of the crossroads of Brazil. So could you explain to our audience a little bit about this concept?
Yes, we can. The thing is that in Brazil, some research recently said that we get 8 generations to move in the socioeconomic environment. It's a lot. And here, people that live in poverty, in favelas, they have no much opportunities to change this. As you're born in poverty, you are seen as a poor people, and it in some way tags you, and you never can change. Beyond this, you have less opportunities of employment, you have less opportunities to study and things like this. So it's really difficult to move. And the thing of the crossroads, it's because it's necessary to a person to break this lot of limits to overcome the poverty and the few opportunities they have. So this is not our concept, it's a concept of another professor, Rufino. He was talking about education, but we we understand that it is very appropriate to look at people that can overcome the challenges to do things the medium class do naturally. Luiza, do you want to complement?
Yeah, just this word crossroads, just to add on top of what Rita was mentioning. We really enjoyed using this expression, because this expression comes from something that is really meaningful in Brazil. It's one of our key roots, that's our African roots. It comes from the candomblé, and it is an Afro religion here in Brazil, and all this, actually it's a typical Brazilian religion. And it's beautiful because it talks about what is happening in between. And the expression that he used it in Portuguese. And we were struggling to try to find a way to explain all the nuance and all the details that a specific expression can carry. And we thought it was a very good opportunity to use an expression that talks a lot about our way of looking at our challenge. So to try to find the ways in between all the challenge and all, so it's to play with what is left over for us. So this is what we wanted to shed light on. So it's really to invite people to look at these social innovations and these social innovators as people that actually they struggle and they manage to find solutions where no one actually can see any way forward, and they find it. So it's a struggle, it's a way of looking at the challenge and find their own ways within these gaps. So it's really, this word is really important for us, because we use it exactly as a way to put a Brazilian flavor in the discussion.
Okay, so since we are talking about words, I will take the opportunity to ask you also about another word. So we call these social innovators and entrepreneurs vida, doris. Can you explain maybe a little bit about this word and how it's different from entrepreneurs and innovators anywhere else in the world?
Yes, we can. I think the meaning is more or less the same. Viradores is slang. Here in Brazil, we custom to use eu me viro. I turn on and off, and I create solutions for my problems. And then virador is not our expression, also is from Besamar Souza Neto, that is a very old friend and a professor also in a federal university in Minas Gerais, that is the state Luiza lives. And it's a kind of meta concept, because we have the entrepreneur is someone that looks at the opportunity, can see the structure is more fixed, is better for the entrepreneur. For the virador, it is not clear. For instance, it's not possible to plan where you can go when you are in the poverty or when you are in the favelas. So the virador, they can work in little steps, not thinking about what they can have in the end of the path, but in what they can lose in these steps. So it's a kind of risk. I can do this thing that is very near for me. So I go, and then another step and another step. It's more or less the meaning.
So she's in a process of current little adaptation all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, so in terms of adaptation, you mentioned that people in the favelas are some of the most vulnerable to climate change. Do you think that this is already visible nowadays? And what can you already see in the favelas around the effects of climate change?
Luiza, do you want to start now?
Yeah, I can. Yes, this actually was one of the key points of our discussion when we were aware that we were writing for a book that is talking about climate change and is addressing this issue. But we wanted really, we were strong on addressing the social vulnerabilities of Brazil and how these things can be related so far. And for us, especially if we talk about COVID-19, for instance, and the impact that we have here from, for instance, access or lack of access to water and to basic sanitation, until, for instance, flood with the heavy rain and all these changes around. The population that is strongly most affected is exactly the population from favelas and from the outskirts, the peripheries of Brazil. So yeah, they are the most vulnerable socially, economically, and for sure, because of that, they are more exposed to the challenge of the climate change. And we can see that in specifically now, this is quite shocking actually in terms of access to tap water and access to the basic access to stuff are the ones that are
Access
dying
to
more.
food. We have 10 million people living without food nowadays, so it's crazy.
It was exactly throughout these last years that Brazilian went back to the UN World Hunger Map. And so we are talking again about hunger and poverty in the extreme here in Brazil. And again, so it's everything strongly related. So we cannot address climate change without putting a strong question mark and shedding light in our structural problems, which are strongly related with this social vulnerability.
So moving a little bit beyond the darker view of the reality in these places, you mentioned that favelas are spaces of real creativity. People really think outside of what you would call the box. What are some of the most inspiring examples of innovation that you have seen in your work?
I need 2 hours to talk about it. I think there is one thing related to the structure that is very bad for them, and not for the medium classes. So I think they must live with a lot of creativity to do the simple things for us. We used in the book 3 different examples, very, very, very interesting. One of them, for instance, was the Coco Zap. There is a very simple thing, but they use small data in their cell phones with young in the favelas to press the government about sanitation, public sanitation. The school that I said that I coordinated in Favela da Maré was a very, very, very interesting experience that put the young people in the center of the discussions of the city. The most expressive things we used in our communication was favela is the city, because there were many discussions in the city about the favelas without people, without favelas residents. And the aim of the project was, and it was very successfully, was to put to drive these young people to sit with the governance from the city to discuss the favela. I don't know. I'm talking about two, but I can talk about, I don't know, a lot of them. Luiza, do you remember some example?
Yeah, just to add one more that we also mentioned in our chapter, that was the example of G10, the G10 of favelas, which they are actually a very interesting example, because they were not only inspired by the G8 group of the powerful in the world, and they got the inspiration. Again, you can see the virador even in the way that they use the words, they use the name. So yeah, we are the top 10 favelas in the world, something like that. It's amazing, because it's how they position themselves, even in terms of their name. It reveals a lot about the way that they look at the opportunities and the challenges as well. It's important to mention that there is no romantical view of favelas and to look at that as, oh, how amazing. No, it's not that. It's hard, it's challenging, but it's beautiful to see how they can manage to find their own solutions. And the G10, one of the examples, this specific is not there inside, but we're still following them, and it's quite interesting. They managed to find funds now to invest in small social innovators in the favela. And one of the ones that they recently have invested is a logistic company inside the favelas. Because of the COVID-19, they were struggling because they have always struggled, because they don't have like a proper zip code for the things to arrive inside a favela. And they've never had it. But now during the pandemic, everything closed and people were not able to move around. So it was even harder to receive simple things inside the favela. And one guy managed to find small centers and place within the favela, and with the motorcycle, he developed their own system of post and of delivery, and which was like, and they are selling that and making partnership with big logistic companies, exactly in this idea of manage to find their own solutions for challenges and things that are there in their everyday life. So it's quite interesting.
And I remember another one from G10, that is, they elect during the COVID-19, the president of the street. The streets are not big because it's inside the favela. And the intention, the aim is to put one that was elected, was as the responsible for the information about COVID and the information about the way to protect themselves. And then they do meetings with 100 and 150 presidents to create solutions for the pandemic. And it's really beautiful, because there are solutions. The beautiful of it is we have solutions for the things, for the problems. The issue is the government must look at it and learn with them and create public policies inspired by the ideas they have, and not the contrary.
So you would say that these innovations, they really make long-lasting impacts in the communities where they are being implemented, or do you think that they have too little support and do they die out? What is your view in the cases that you have seen?
In Brazil, the population that die and take the COVID more were poor and Black, and it's our history. But we were expecting at the beginning of the disease that much more people die for COVID than it was than happened in fact. So beyond this kind of information, and they are doing things like, for instance, masks. So woman that works doing clothes start work doing masks, and they distribute more than 1 million masks in the favelas they are. The problem of hungry we have, and they really impacted it. They distribute more than 10 million quentinhas, is a pack with food for them to eat. They distribute food to be cooked, but at this time, only for you to imagine the how deep is our problem. People don't have gas to cook, so it's not enough to give food for them to cook because they can't cook. You understand? And then, so there is a very big impact, not only from GEDES, but from a lot of others NGOs and community movements that works doing this. Donation, engaging big enterprises with soap, with water, and things like food.
Yeah, and it's interesting because these social innovations, they are, you do have different styles, different sizes, and different impacts depending on each social innovation. So, for instance, GEDES, G10, they developed this like seed funding for exactly to support such big ideas and social innovations, and in order to make sure that they have their right impact and they can spread their ideas and experience and see how they can somehow multiply these initiatives. You do have also these small social innovations that are the everyday life solutions. And in this one, Rita can talk a lot about that specifically because she's in the Mano a Mano, which is a very interesting project funding what they call it nano social innovations, nano entrepreneurs, which is like these small ones that you can see and you can think, okay, they don't have so much impact or they die quickly, as you were asking. But the investment that they are doing now, for instance, in this project specifically, the Mano a Mano, is exactly trying to make sure that they have the basic instruments and the support, financial and in terms of technical support as well, to make sure that they are more stable and then can offer more impact in that family and that community. So in terms of even measuring impact, depending on which are the glasses and the lenses that we are talking about. If we are talking about a family, yeah, this is a huge impact. It is an impact. So if we are talking about a community, yeah, so everything depends on which perspective we are taking here.
That is great to hear as a last message from this question, that it really, even if it's a small, even if it is a family, it's already a big impact depending on the lens. I really like this view. One other thing that I'm curious is, since you've also worked with public policy, what could be the role played by public policy in supporting these innovations?
It is being very discussed in Rio nowadays. There are many different ways to support it. For instance, it is possible to sit and talk with the ones that are having more impact and understand what they need from the governance. But I think, as it was done in the past in other fields, it is important and possible to look at the things that are happening now and understand the ways the structure of the government can help them. For instance, there are many movements in favelas that need one space. I don't know, to put the food they receive as donates. The government don't help on it. It is very important. The government can connect them with lots of other actors in the territories that can do something for them. And I think the government can put money on it because it is important for the people that live in the city. So
yeah, and I was, while Rita was mentioning that, I was thinking that, and we discussed that while we were writing the chapter, that we were always conscious about not removing the burden and the challenge that this population they need to live and they are forced to live. Because although we are talking, we are shedding light and we are looking at the beauty behind all these social innovations, how they find their own ways in between and all these things. At the same time, it's important to think and to acknowledge the fact that they live in such a vulnerable, in such a lack of basic public services and structural problems, and they face structural problems that comes from that are cutted through class, gender, and all these challenges. So I think first and foremost, the most important thing, if we're talking about the government investment, it's important for the government to make sure that we have the access to the basics, like the basic infrastructure, the basic access to income and this stuff. Imagine if you have this basic right, sorry, assured, then all this creativity and all this, sorry, civilologia can be focused on even more amazing stuff. Sorry, I'm gonna.
Okay, so maybe Rita can start with the next one. And as we're moving towards the end of the interview, I would like to ask a bit about your hopes for the future, what you hope can come out of maybe this book, and also about from the COP conference. Do you have particular hopes for the conference in November?
since I was a little girl, I hope a lot of things that never happen in the city and in the country. It's a very hard reality, but it's the reality we live. We have such a big population, intelligent people, like many other countries, biodiversity, maybe we are the more rich country nowadays in biodiversity. But we are not living a very good period now in the politics and in the economic and also in the health, like everybody. But I think in terms of future, what it is, I don't know the word. It is very, very, very important nowadays to look at the poor, because there is no happy country. There is no rich country with poor people. You walk on the streets and you have people asking for money, asking for food on the street. About numbers on it, we are now with numbers that are more or less the same as 20 years ago in poverty, in employment, and in health and things like this. So my hope, but I don't believe it will happen now. I think we need more 10 years ahead to change things in this way. But my hope is that we stop burning Amazon. We can, my hope is also our industry here can work with parameters that are more responsible and things like this. But I don't believe in it.
Oh my goodness, Rita, please help me. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I was thinking here in terms of looking to the future and inspirations and things like that. And if I can dream or I can think and look forward to something, I thought, I hope with this COVID-19, we could learn more to be more solidary. So I would use this word solidarity to talk not only solidarity with one of each other, but with the world as well. We proved in this last 2 years that actually we are just one more item in this whole world, and that also if this pandemic has exposed how actually one is connected to each other. So if we, or at least the younger generation, can learn a bit about solidarity, and not only between the different countries, people, populations, but as well as with the world, I think maybe this can be something interesting. And if we are talking about the social innovations and the ones that we choose to include in the chapter, this is definitely one of the main lessons that they reveal to us, is this thing of the solidarity and how they find their own ways of helping each other and fill the gaps that sometimes is left by the institutions and the hard way of looking at the world. So yeah, I think we do have some inspirations from, for instance, the donut economy being applied in Amsterdam, to this small experience within the favelas here in Brazil. We do have examples, so maybe they can be a very good inspiration for the future, Donald.
And on the topic of inspiration for the future, I have one last quick question, which is, if people were to take just one message from the chapter, what would you like that message to be?
Difficult. The message is pay attention in whom you are voting and electing. This is for me the bigger message you can. In Brazil, we are living very difficult problems in politics. And I know that in many other countries also with pressure on democracy. Yeah, we are living it here. So I think we must elect better our governance.
Yeah, I was thinking here, I just had a look again in the title, and maybe one of the messages that would be really good is as a seduction process, trying to seduce the readers for a different vocabulary, a Brazilian way of looking at the challenge, a Brazilian way of find their own solutions, and the Brazilian way of looking at the other, the challenge, the everyday struggles. And so yeah, maybe if we can seduce people to use our vocabulary and words, and in a most meaningful way, you know, like yes, it's Crossroads, it's Virador, and it's the place where Carnival, Capoeira, and Candomblé is born. And yeah, if we can show these and seduce people to look at Brazil with all this, to look at these flavors within our theories, our way of living, I don't know, something like that.
Okay, thank you so much, Rita and Luiza, for talking to me today. It has been a wonderful conversation, hearing about all your experiences and all of your work. To those of you watching, if you want to learn more about this Brazilian flavor and what is going on in terms of innovations at a small scale in Brazilian favelas, you can go to the description. You can find there a link to one of the projects that has been mentioned, the Mano a Mano, and also the link to the Climate Adaptations book if you want to pre-order to read Rita and Luiza's chapter. Thank you again so much, Rita and Luiza.
Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you.
Thank you.